A lot of interesting news is breaking as you join us today for the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Hello, it's a Monday edition. Welcome back from a weekend. How are you, Olga?
I'm good. How are you? Always
I'm.
busy.
It's
Busy, busy,
always
busy.
busy. You know, you are so certainly busy. You make the rest of us look really bad, but I appreciate your work so much. You do such incredible stuff. I'm going to let everyone just flow in here a little bit. There is a lot of breaking news just happening as we get on the air. Two statements that came out in the last hour, one from Vladimir Putin. And just before we got on, Trump gave his readout of the call they had this morning. It was a 2-hour call, apparently, between Putin and Trump. Both seem to echo the same sentiment that there'll be some sort of negotiation beginning for a ceasefire, and that there'll be some sort of understanding around a memorandum that they'll negotiate. This seems to me the same thing over and over again. Didn't we just have an agreement to talk about the ceasefire?
I mean, this whole thing is, uh, literally, it's the same like with, Trump promising to end it in 24, um, he called it hours, before he even got to the White
I
House.
remember that.
Again, like this is all going to be, kicked down and kicked down the road. Nothing is going to be accomplished. We already saw, first of all, this is very key. Russia went into this call with Trump launching the largest barrage of drones in Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. So this is exactly what the ceasefire is. I mean, exactly what they did last night. 200, I believe, 73 drones they sent into um Ukraine. And this is, on the heels of this call. This was a message. Also, Ukrainian military intelligence, along with others, were picking up that Russia was preparing to test again. To frighten U.S. and Europe, ICBM missiles to do a
Wow.
missile test, and that was, coming out yesterday, and that it was going to happen any moment, and basically to intimidate the US and Europe. So I mean, again, we will keep having this. I promise you, it'll be like summer and fall and winter
Mm.
next summer, and it's going to be the same result because the only way for this to end is for Ukraine to receive the weapons they need and to finally be able to finish Russia off inside of Ukraine. Either than that, it's just going to continue being stalled and stalled. And Putin is a KGB agent. He knows how to manipulate people. He knows how to run operations. And what have we seen? Yes, let's go, have a meeting in Turkey, and then he doesn't show up. And that delayed a week. And that week, how many Ukrainians died? Then, oh yes, let's have a call, with the United States, with Trump, who's providing him cover. That's another week that went by, and we're nowhere even close to anything. I mean, this whole thing is absurd, and it's just more realization that Europe, the US is gone. Europe needs to step up and provide weapons to Ukraine to secure Ukraine and to secure their, all borders, because Russia is planning to expand its war across Europe.
It's interesting that Putin gave out his readout first before the United States. This seems to be the choreography that Trump and Putin always have now, that Trump lets Putin go first. It's a real indicator of who's sort of senior in this relationship in Trump's mind.
So I can tell you that from 2017, when Trump came into office, I monitor Russian news all day and night. And I can tell you that this has been the pattern since 2017. Every single meeting, every single phone call, every planned meeting, every visit, everything was always put out by Russia first and then the United States. And I remember posting on Twitter at the time, oh, Russia said they just got off the phone with Trump. Our media is clueless. And then they would, go and confirm. And sure enough, yes, that phone call did happen. So, I mean, it's been like this for, since Trump was in office the first time.
So you're not expecting much to come out of these talks. It's sort of more of the same, but you are expecting even more escalation of attacks on Kyiv and on Ukraine, as we had One person died in that drone attack yesterday. Do you
I
think it's going to
mean,
continue?
oh, absolutely, Russia's going to continue, particularly around these strategic meetings and phone calls, quote unquote strategic.
Hmm.
They're going to continue, absolutely. First of all, people need to understand Putin cannot stop the war. He doesn't want to stop the war, and that's it. And even for he can't. I mean, as we were saying before we got on, I said that, there's not one leader going back 200 years who has, if they failed on an imperialist ambition, they are dead or taken out of power. So, I mean, Putin can't stop the war. Then you have the economy that's on a war footing. And even if, Putin does illegally take five regions, first of all, he doesn't even control the five regions. I mean, they partially have occupied regions, but Putin wants even the regions that their military hasn't been able to achieve a breakthrough. Again, Ukrainians are not going to accept this. And even if they accept a temporary, like
Occupation.
pause.
Mm.
Yeah, even if they accepted, we all saw what happened in 2014 after Russia illegally annexed Crimea and occupied Donbass. We saw Russia moving in ballistic missiles and turning Crimea into a military base to prepare for further aggression. And it was just a matter of time. Trump, carries on that it's while he was in office, Putin waited for Biden to come into office, but that's a lie. The initial plan was to go much earlier, but then COVID happened,
Mhm.
and that set back the timetable for everyone and everything. So, I mean, now you're going to have what, Russia hanging out even closer to Kiev? I mean, no. And then you have the people and the children. There's just too much that it's not going to go
But
anywhere.
even so, what you're saying is that Putin's political life is at risk if he even if he gets some of the territory. You still think it's not going to be enough to satisfy the Russian, the military or other imperialists in terms of what he'll get. That it's gonna he needs the entire country,
Absolutely.
or he'll wow,
Absolutely.
that's interesting.
If Putin painted, and I remember watching Russian TV, in the days leading up to Russia's full-scale invasion to look for, monitor signs. If they spent the day before the full-scale invasion replaying, how the Soviets defeated the Nazis,
Mhm.
and he painted Ukrainians as Nazis and an existential threat to Russia. What is he going to say? Never mind, I was just kidding.
Right.
They're not Nazis and they're no longer a threat. I mean, you cannot paint a country as a threat and to your own existence, which is what he has done over the past decade, and specifically 21 into 22 before the full scale invasion, and then say, oh no, you know what, we are happy with these territories. The rest now no longer are Nazis.
Mhm.
And Russia, and you see this come up time and time again. Lavrov just said their key objective is still this, mystical denazification, which
Mhm.
is a lie, demilitarization, because they don't want Ukraine to have a strong military, and the end of weapons to Ukraine. Europe is not going to accept ending weapon shipments. If anything, they've been ramping up weapon shipments to cover what the US has pulled back because they understand. Ukraine right now is like a dam. And if Russia breaks through the dam, it's going to flow into other countries across Europe. So right now they are doing everything to prop up. There are too many like factors, historical factors, current factors in every side that it cannot be solved. Like Trump says, oh, I'm going to have a call. Everything's great, beautiful call. And that's it. It's just too much going on. You have the Europeans who have their own objectives. And again, I keep saying, Zelensky, has been excellent for protecting Ukraine and being a spokesperson for Ukraine. If he ever betrays Ukrainians, he will be out. He's not like, the Ukrainians do not play. Two revolutions, they're not going to play and watch a traitor, who is dangerous to their countries, sit inside power and hand away anything. He'll be out and he'll be, thrown over the border. you
So
know?
this is such important context, and I hope everyone takes it away from today's show. This notion that these talks are just another way to
It's a
delay, and
delay.
extend the war. They're not real negotiations, no matter what Trump or Putin are
There.
saying.
No, and that's why I keep saying that the only thing that has ever worked is that Russia must be defeated in Ukraine. That's it. That is it. Then they will go lick their wounds. Putin will be assassinated. There will be a temporary, power struggle for them to figure out which family is taking power next or who the security services want to put in power. There'll be, explosions and car bombs and everything, like just like in the 90s. Um, and that's it. And that's the only way they, back off temporarily. But the threat is not going away, nor is there imperialist, because everyone pins this conveniently on Putin. This has nothing. Putin is a symptom of the system. This is how every hardliner things. And I'll give you a small example. In the fall of 21, I was talking to a Russian who was living in the UK for decades. I mean, he's an westernized. When I mentioned, that, oh my God, it looks like there are signs that Russia's going to take, hey, call it, launch a full-scale invasion into Ukraine. If you saw suddenly the Western, facade fell off, and he basically was like, yes, we need to. And, this is our country and our territory. And I was like, who are you?
Hmm.
Where do you come from?
Yeah,
Well, what am I just talking to? Because this is just inside. This is how they feel. They feel that Ukraine, Georgia, the Baltics, Estonians, Lithuanians, Latvians, that these are all theirs
right.
and that they need to get it back. Whether it's Putin, whether it's a taxi driver in Moscow, this is the sentiment. And it's always been like this for decades.
Thank you for that. That's brilliant analysis. And, let's stay in that region because in international news that relates to what we do here on the Trump Tyranny Tracker, centrist, I'm going to not say this name correctly, I don't think, but Nikosor Dan has won the Romania's presidency with 54% of the vote, defeating the hard right Trump aligned Kremlin loyalist George Simeon, who had campaigned to cut Ukraine aid, sort of in a MAGA type policy that he was putting forward. Dan's victory blocks a pro Russia, anti EU shift and signals a voter backlash against the sort of MAGA extremism, even in Russia's backyard, where they have been putting in quite an effort to make sure that a MAGA candidate would win. They lost.
I'm actually writing about this now, and I'm gonna post a Substack shortly. But I laugh because yesterday that was a nail biter. I mean, I was hitting refresh on the Romanian election site, as the votes were coming in. And interestingly enough, there the pattern that has emerged since Trump, came back to power, and it is basically everybody's watching what is happening in the United States and they're saying, fuck no, I don't want any of that. We saw it with Canada. We saw it with Moldova. We saw it with now Romania. In Albania,
Australia.
Australia, Albania, there was, a week ago an election where the guy even hired Chris LaCivita, and he still lost.
Yep.
And basically, there is a rejection of megaism and Trumpism and this populism, which all ties to Russia. And Romania, the reason I'm obsessed with Romania is because, I do a lot of work on Romania and with Romanians. And it is one of like the key strategic partners of NATO because of the partnership with the Black Sea, because of the proximity and the strategic partnerships with Ukraine, particularly since the full-scale invasion. Um, their influence over Moldova, who has also rejected, Russia. Last year was the election was right around the time of our election, and that's it. And it just goes to show you that no matter how much Russia and Trump are trying to interfere in internal politics across Europe, people are moving back. And again, this is always the push and pull. Like I've watched this happen over the past few decades. But they're right now moving back to centrist and towards leftist and kind of, sidelining the Trump aligned, mega aligned, Russian aligned candidates. So
You
very
mentioned
good news.
it is very good news. You mentioned Romania as being a part of NATO. That's a big deal. I mean, of course, for Putin, he really wanted to influence Romania's leadership because
Absolutely.
it would put him give him a voice inside NATO. And of course, a lot of America's defenses, air defenses, and other things are based in Romania. Is because they're a NATO ally. So it's a really,
Temporarily.
yeah, it's a big deal that, yes, it's temporarily, but it's still there right now. But it's a big deal that this guy won. He's also really smart. He's like a Carney kind of character. He's got a couple of math genius scores or something like that. He seems to be like a really smart guy, like intellectually the opposite of Donald Trump.
Yeah. No, that's he absolutely. I mean, a rock is smarter than Trump, but yeah, no, he is, and I can tell you, like, we can all breathe a sigh of relief because had Romania fallen, I mean, it would be extremely devastating for Europe if Romania became another proxy of Russia, and it would be devastating. And Russia has been working on, because Moldova and Romania are historically close. I mean, even during last election, and I can't tell you how many operations I've monitored in Moldova, where Russia like puts out disinformation that Romanian military is now throwing on Moldovan military to carry out some kind of operations. Like Russia's goal in that section is one, to overthrow Moldova, even to the point that they had an assassination plot on Sandu a few years ago, to split Moldova and Romania. And if they can seize Romania, at least via proxy, thank God they didn't, this would have been devastating, especially with the U.S. exiting, and now in preparations to remove U.S. troops from Europe. So,
Yeah, that's a really, really significant story. Let's try to fit a couple of more in here before we have to go. Mexico security chief confirmed that 17 family
yeah.
members of the Sinaloa cartel, these are leaders, this is the leader of Video Guzman Lopez, including El Chapo's ex-wife and daughter, entered the United States last week under a secret arrangement with the Trump administration. This extraordinary border crossing follows rumors that Guzman is cooperating with the U.S. prosecutors to avoid trial. This is crazy that we've got, allowing 17 members of the Sinaloa cartel and family members to cross the border into the United States as part of a deal.
I have actually no analysis. I put it in just because how crazy it is. And
Oh
I
my
have a
gosh.
lot of questions because as Trump is, freaking removing, disappearing people from US between gangs and,
Yes,
cartel lines,
exactly.
he's bringing an actual cartel into the United States. So again,
Unbelievable.
I honestly put it, I didn't even have an analysis except that I have a lot of questions of why he brought this whole family, and I mean, this is a huge cartel family and very powerful, into the US. Why it was done secretly, if they are cooperating, he could have, after bringing them here, just say, like, well, "Oh, they're working with our prosecutors and our whatever hijack Department of Justice and whatnot," but I don't know. It's
It's
just,
crazy to
it's
bring in all these cartel family
it is a
members
Trump invasion, absolutely.
and with
With
no,
actual cartel to sell
yeah.
weapons and traffic humans, and I don't know.
I mean, if there's a reason to be declaring the Aliens Act as the Enemies Alien Act, you might want to do it for this group of people. But instead, they gave
I
them a deal to come into the United States and live here. I mean, this is preposterous on every level. A couple of other stories. Let's get to a House GOP measure backed by Trump would allow the Treasury Department to revoke tax-exempt status. We spoke about this last week from nonprofits deemed terrorist-supporting nations or companies. Sorry, without due process. Legal experts warn the vague language creates a weapon to silence political opposition, coming as the Trump's DOJ already investigates universities using concerns about DEI policies and anti-Semitism as justification. This is troubling. This got through in the latest round of the so-called big beautiful bill or whatever he's calling it, a name that people should stop using, because
right?
it's really not anything like that, and the people in the media just keep
No,
repeating it. But this is,
exactly. The
but
Medicaid, health insurance,
yeah,
give tax breaks to the rich. Bill.
yeah. Yeah, it's really unfair description of it. And so you're now talking about nonprofits being targeted because of their points of view.
I brought it up again today because it did move, advance, the bill advanced. And this is something that if everyone, gets on this, we have a chance to stop it because the amendment, even though it advanced, it still has to go to Senate. So we have time to stop this. But for me, this is one of the most like really when I rarely raise alarms, this is
Mm.
one of them because this basically puts any organization into the crosshairs of Trump and his regime, who support terrorism. Who supports terrorism? I might be supporting terrorism because I support democracy. You know, Harvard apparently supporting terrorism because they're using a similar measure from the bill to investigate for IRS to investigate them. And this, frankly, to me, the minute I saw the language of this bill, it came out last year and I warned people, and now it's back. To me, it looks like the Russia's foreign agent law, identical, where you deem, memorial that documented, Stalin's gulags, as basically a terrorist organization and an enemy of the people. And, and you go after journalists, media, anti-corruption organizations, and that's it. And then the definition of terrorism is extremely loose because, for Trump, anyone who's not supporting him is a terrorist.
You raise a
So
very
this
good
is
point because the nonprofits are abused by a lot of the right wing organizations. The MAGA organizations, like Steve Bannon's organization, that was registered as a nonprofit. I doubt that he is going to get
no,
investigated
nope,
as a terrorist. Meanwhile,
no.
all the liberal left leaning organizations that are nonprofits, they are likely going to be targeted as terrorist
Absolutely.
organizations. So
Absolutely.
you
And
make
we're
a very good
talking
point.
Indivisible, we're talking Act Blue, we're talking every organization, disability rights organizations, universities, anyone. This is why we need to put a pedal on this. And I'll keep, until I'm blue in the face, repeating this over and over because we can't let this measure pass.
That's very important, and everyone should call their Congress people and senators and keep pushing on this one. It's a very important story. One final quick one: Oklahoma's new K-12 social
Mm,
studies standards, pushed by pro-Trump Superintendent Ryan Walters, required students to identify discrepancies in the 2020 election. So you now have got a school curriculum that is effectively promoting conspiracy theories about ballot dumps and mail-in voting that was just untrue. We know that that wasn't true for 2020. So this is not part of a school education system.
Just an answer to Holly, it's a nonprofit bill, or nonprofit kill
Mhm.
amendment, and it's being the Republicans have secretly put it into their hundreds pages bill to push, thinking people wouldn't notice. So that's what it is. Yes, Oklahoma, fascinating because again, this just gives you a taste of where this country is headed if we don't push back. Um, and it basically, again, it reminds me of what I see in Russia. You know how many times I've seen textbooks like rewritten, and they rewrite them so often, depending on what the agenda is. And this is what's happening here. You're taking election lies, 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 and sitting and putting it into textbooks to basically produce the next generation of mega and push mega disinformation and propaganda. I mean, it's something again we need to push back because this is ridiculous. Like we don't need to relitigate the 2020 election. We all know Biden
We
won.
certainly
And
don't.
the fact that now you're going to have a state, with this school attendant, who, by the way, is batshit crazy. I've seen him on CNN and he's like not altogether
Okay.
there.
It's not
Um,
surprising.
to have him, push this measure that students now have to like read that, Biden was not a legitimate president. I mean, get out of here.
It's
You know,
indoctrination. It's just indoctrination a
It
very young
is.
age, and it just tells you how much of this is in their agenda. They're going to keep doing it as much as possible. All this stuff that isn't true is going to land up in history books. Well, that's all the time we have for today on the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Thank you, Olga Lautman. We've heard about the so-called peace negotiations that Putin and Trump seem to be talking about. We've talked about secret deals with cartel families that are being brought into the country. We've talked about nonprofits being targeted, about the incredible win in Romania, and also election disinformation in schools. There's a lot going on as we're tracking authoritarianism in the United States, and Olga Lautman is the place to get it all. The Trump Tyranny Tracker.substack.com is a must subscribe. That's why we do the show every day, to
Thank
give you
you.
a
Yeah.
small sample of all the incredible work Olga does in summarizing everything that's going on. Everyone should subscribe to that as soon as possible. And
You too.
everyone should, yeah, and come to, check out narrative.org, Narativ.org.
And
That's
your 3 p.m. 5 stack.
and oh, you know who's doing 3 p.m. because Dean's away? Lev Parnas is doing it, and he's doing it live from Brighton Beach.
Oh, from Brighton Beach. Oh,
Oh my God! So,
our old hood. We both grew up there.
oh my God, I would love to have you both do that one of these days. Take us through a stroll
My
down that
It's
incredible
very
boardwalk.
westernized. I've gone to, Brighton a few times. I try to avoid it because of that there's no place to park the car. But it became very westernized. You don't have like the babushka selling, like the little meat pastries and everything in front of the stores. Like now you have like, CVS and
Okay,
Dunkin' Donuts
is
and Starbucks.
Tatiana's still there?
I think Tatiana's is still there. I mean, you have a few still, the cafes and everything, but I mean, when I was growing up, it was completely different. Like literally, you step outside of Brighton a few blocks away, and you're like, "Whoa, America!" You come back there, and it's like, "Whoa, not America!" Like
Right.
you're
It's like
you're
a
like
whole.
really in the Soviet Union on Brighton, and then you go out and see like real America
Is
as
that
soon as you
amusement
get
park still there?
Coney Island. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love one of these days we should do this show live from there. I'd love to have you walk and talk and just tell us about your memories. It would be amazing.
Oh, so
So,
many. Between someone hanging dead off a cafe because mob wars. Yeah.
well,
All the
that's the
schemes.
story.
Yeah.
That is the story. Anyhow, I'm going to take up enough of your time today. That is the Trump Tyranny Tracker. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and I'll see you again at 3 o'clock
See you
on the Five
tomorrow.
Stack. Bye
Bye.
bye.